What's up, guys? Back at me here today. I'll be doing my review for Toy Story 2. Okay, so this movie starts off with like in space, and then we see Buzz, and he's crashing down to the planet, and he gets on it, and he's like, "Dark man, there is no uh, intelligent life anywhere," and then he sees like a bunch of like robots, and then and then what? And they attack him, but Buzz uses stuff like blasts off and like blasts the laser, which boom, 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 and it explodes everything. So yeah, and then a robot, and then he tries to get into this like place, but then the security robot spots him, so he blows it up. So then he gets into the place, and we see he's trying to get to Emperor Zurg, and yeah, and he goes, dun, and there's like the spikes, but he gets through before it can, and then he goes, bum, 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 and then he falls, and then he's at the place, he's at the place, and he does go to Zurg's like, he goes to like Zurg's power source, but but it's a hologram, and then and, and then Buzz and Zurg's like, Buzz Lightyear, you have stopped me for the last time. And he's like, not today, Zurg, and then Zurg starts using his blast and boom, 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 and then he uses one final blast and kills Buzz. But as we learn, it's just a game, and that Rex is playing with Buzz, and he's like, and Rex is like, and Buzz is like almost saying, he's like, I'm not gonna defeat Zurg, and while that's happening, Woody's trying to find his hat because Andy's going to cowboy camp, and yeah, and then they get new, and then Andy's dog Buster comes out, and he finds Woody, and then he licks Woody, and Woody's like, "Oh, Buster, come on!" And yeah, and actually Slinky before that did find his hat, but and Andy plays with Woody back and accidentally rips Woody's like arm, rips accidentally rips off, so they shove him, and he meets and he's like, Wheezy. He's like, Wheezy, Andy's mom was supposed to find you a squeaker like days ago. And he's like, she just told Andy that to keep him calm. And yeah, and yeah. So then we get into a dream sequence where Andy comes back from cowboy camp, and he's like, oh yeah, Woody, you're broken. I don't want to play with you anymore. And then Woody like, we don't have to dream because Woody falls through the cards that are there, and he's like, goodbye, Woody. It's just like so creepy, and Woody's like, Eddie, no, and he wakes up from his dream, and yeah, and yeah, and then they're having a yard sale where Andy's mom grabs Wheezy, and so yeah, but but Woody tries to save him with Buster, but Woody accidentally falls, and then this guy named Al, who owns Al's Toy Barn, picks up who picks up Woody, and she's like, no, that's not for sale, but he kidnaps Woody, and they're like, wait, he's kidnapping Woody, and yeah, and Buzz tries to go after Woody, but fails, and yeah. So, yeah. So Buzz is trying to sketch out who kidnapped Woody, and he's like, dress that man in a chicken suit. And he's like, that's our guy, the chicken man. And Ham's like, I never trusted that chicken. And yeah, so Woody's in this like storage place and he meets Jesse and Bullseye. He meets like this cowgirl and Jesse, this horse named Bullseye, and she's like, And she's like, the prospector said someday you come. Wait a minute, the prospector, he'll wanna meet ya. And and they get the prospector, and he's like, oh, our prodigal son has returned, and he's like, well, I'm officially freaked out here. He's like, I knew you'd come back, Woody. And he's like, how you guys know his name? And he's like, Jesse's like, everyone knows your name, Woody. And yeah, and then he shows him like a cartoon that Woody was in called It's the Woody's Roundup. Ready to start the game. It's Jesse the Young Cow. Yo, and Bullseye, he's Woody's horse. He's a smart one. And, well, old prospector and the man himself. It's time for Woody's Roundup in the Wild Wild West. Woody's Roundup. And yeah, and then they play an episode where Woody has to save Bullseye, save Jesse and Prospector. But unfortunately, Prospector reveals that 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 people were that the show got canceled after one episode because more people were more interested in space toys than a TV show. And Woody's like, I know how that feels because remember the last movie, and yeah. So and then they show him his like what is it called? His like memorabilia, and yeah. Well, that's happening. The others are trying to find Woody, and they and and yeah, and Jesse's the entire movie. She's like, oh, go back to Andy and go back to Andy. It's like your Andy's gonna be missing you. It's like, okay, Willie, and then yeah. So it's revealed that in a sad moment, it's revealed that Jesse's owner ended up going. Jesse had an owner named Emily, who is people have theory to be Andy's mom, and 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 she had spent the whole day with Jesse. But then when she grew up, she eventually deserted Jesse, and she was left in a donation box. And it's really sad because now we understand why Jesse doesn't like Woody leaving because she had to experience her owner growing up and leaving her behind. So you understand why she now that Woody has a kid of his own because she had one and her kid abandoned her. So yeah, and while that's happening, the guy's going to Al's toy barn, and Buzz goes into the aisle of buzzes, and he meets like a Buzz Lightyear with a utility belt who tackles him, and he's like Space Ranger, and he's like, and yeah, this Buzz, it's like Buzz from the last movie, but without the realization that he's not a Space Ranger, so he tackles our Buzz, and and Buzz says, I don't have time for this. I just love that. Where Buzz just says to the other Buzz that he has no time to mess with this Buzz anything. So this Buzz, thinking that our Buzz is breaking the law, ties him up and throws him in the box, and yeah, and the fake Buzz, or the thinking is a Space Ranger Buzz, which is not our Buzz, and yeah. So I'm just gonna call him fake Buzz. He's not fake Buzz, but he's not the Buzz that we know. So I'm just gonna call him. What am I gonna call him? Toy Buzz. So Toy Buzz and the gang leave, and he's like, he's like, I know how to, Rex is like, I know how to defeat Stark, and he's like, you do? And he's like, and he gets on and buzzes, and our Buzz is like, that's not me, you've got the wrong Buzz, and he cannot hear, they cannot hear him, so they're like, what's up with the utility belt, Buzz, and they leave with tour guide Barbie because they met with the tour guide Barbie. So yeah, well, Buzz is locked up. Our Buzz is locked up. Toy Buzz is Toy Buzz has thinks that Al is an agent of Zurg. So they're trying to save Woody, and Woody's about to leave when Stinky Pete makes him gets into his head and makes him think that a museum is better for Woody than being with Andy. So when the gang finally comes, Buzz breaks out, and he finally finds them, and he attacks the others, thinking that they're enemies. So he attacks you, thinking that they're enemies, but they're not actually enemies. And he's like, and then our Buzz shows up, and he's like, Buzz, which one's I'm Buzz Lightyear. I'm Buzz Lightyear. And he's like, which one is the real Buzz? And he's like, I am. So, and yeah, and then Buzz does the cool thing where he makes the toy Buzz choke out, like what did him in the original movie, which is so yeah, and he makes Woody think that toy Buzz think that Woody's a king. So he's like, this is a code 546, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, oh yeah, and he's like, oh, your majesty, and yeah, and also both people was totally cheating on Woody with totally kissing Buzz, because when they went to go save Woody, she was like, Buzz, give this to Woody for me, and she kisses Buzz, and he's like, I don't think I'd be able to do that myself. So yeah. So they save, but Woody, because the prospector got in his head, is like, Buzz, I want to stay with them. I don't want to go back to Andy. But he's like, Woody, you are a toy, just like Woody did in the original to Buzz. And he's like, you are a child's plaything, Woody. And he's like, would you rather go into a museum, having people look at you, rather than having a kid love you? And yeah, he's like, yeah. So he's like, then we'll go. And he's like, what about Woody? He's like, he's not coming with us. So yeah, and then Woody watches a video of himself singing, "You got a friend in me," and then that changes his mind. But Prospector gets out of his bug and closes the thing, and he's like, closes the thing, and that's when you realize that Prospector is the villain of the movie. So, yeah, and he's like, you turned off the TV, not Jesse. You turned off the TV, not Jesse, because there's a scene where someone turned on the TV, and we thought it was Jesse, but it was actually the Prospector when Al was sleeping. So, and he's like, I've waited so long for this, I'm not gonna have a cowboy doll ruin it for me now. And he's like, Buzz Light does or something. And he's like, his name is Buzz Light. And he's like, whatever. And he said he just likes those. He says he just like Prospector. He just likes those space toys anyway. And Jesse and Bullseye, who wanted to go with Buzz because we convinced them that they'd be in love with Andy. But yeah, but then Al comes, he takes them, and he goes on to Japan, and then Zurg shows up because he was broken out of his box and he's like, and then he fights Buzz, and he's like, and Toy Buzz is like, you killed my father, and then Zurg's like, I am your father, and he's like, and Toy Buzz is like, no, try and do a Star Wars reference. That's what they're trying to do in this movie. So yeah. So, and there's also the green aliens who appear, and they're like, ew, you have saved us. So yeah. So, and then Buzz is like, hey Toy Buzz, do you want to come with us? And he's like, no, I'm gonna play with my dad. And he's like, and he throws the ball at Sergey. He's like, you're doing good, Buzzy. And that's what it was that. So they go off to save Jesse. They go off to save Woody, and they go off to save Woody. So yeah, and so there you go. And but 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 Woody and the Woody gets out, but then the prospector rips off Woody's arm again because it was fixed by the the guy who's friends with Alan. He's like, you can either go to me, you can either come be, or you can go in pieces. And he's like, never. So he's like, then. So he's like, then. But then they get flashed by light, and then they're like, hey, we know where he can play some special playtime. So he gets put in a bag with this girl named Amy, with this kid named Amy, and she has this Barbie who turns around and has like a bunch of stickers on her face, and she's like, she's an artist, and he's like, no, and that's where we leave with him. And yeah, he's like, sneak peek got what he deserved, kind of. So they have to save Jesse now that they've dealt with the villain, and they have to save Jesse now. So they go and they save. So they go and we end up on the plane, but then Buzz jumps up. He saves them, and they go, and yeah. So they leave, and then when Andy gets home, he's like, new toy, thanks mom. So he's really happy that he got a new toy, and yeah, Buzz flirts with Jesse. Jesse's like, you're the nicest spaceman. You're the nicest spaceman I've ever saw. And yeah, and we sees Molly able to walk. He's like, even if things go bad, I'll always have you, Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond. And then we see Wheezy, who, thanks to the shark guy from the last movie, who said, "He's Woody, how he fixed Wheezy's speaker," and he's like, he sings, "You got a friend in me, da na. You got a friend in me, da na na na." And Mrs. and Mr. Potato Head adopt the green aliens, and that's how the movie ends. Okay, so Toy Story 2, it was a really enjoyable movie. I really liked this one. It was really good. Yes. Unlike Sid, the psychopath in the last movie, Prospector's reveal was kind of we didn't know that he was a villain. We just thought he was a good guy, but they're like, we have a villain, so let's make and actually it kind of started turning him into villain when he got into Woody's head about him leaving, and Jesse's backstory was really sad. As I said, it was really sad, and there is a theory that her owner could have been Andy's mom. So yeah, and the aliens, they were funny, and Toy Buzz, as I call him, he's not our Buzz, he's Toy Buzz because he has Toy Belt. He was really good too. Yeah, only if you knew that he wasn't a real Space Ranger, just like Buzz did in the original movie. And it was kind of weird to just take him out of the movie by saying, "Hey, he's gonna have fun with his dad," and for them to do a Star Wars reference was just like, okay, they're gonna do a Star Wars reference, okay, and yeah. So that was my review for Toy Story 2. I'm going to be watching Toy Story 3, which took place in 2010. Yeah. Which has an adult, a 19-year-old Andy, because we know that he goes to college. So, yeah. I'll see you guys in my review for Toy Story 3.